Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Brian Batko. We're going to talk a little bit more about OTAs. Let's stick on the defensive side of the ball for a little bit here, Brian. We got a chance to talk to guys like Darius Rush and Cory Trice. Also got a chance to talk to Donte Jackson for a little bit. And it's kind of just I think it's interesting to see how the Steelers are going to figure out the cornerback position. We talked a lot about the slot corner and how that's completely undecided right now. They didn't bring back Shannon Sullivan. Beanie Bishop might be that guy. Who knows? But even at the outside corner, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. I know Donte Jackson is the addition they brought in from the Panthers and the Deontay Johnson trade, but if he's the number 2, okay, fine. He's a solid veteran with good speed, but we all know how injuries work. They're going to need somebody at some point. And right now they have a lot of guys who just have a lot to prove, like Trice, who's coming off injury, and Rush, who played like 30 snaps in his first game and then didn't play much after that last year.
Yeah, I mean, Donte Jackson, it would be good for the Steelers to kind of recoup some of the value from that Deontay Johnson trade if he turns out to still have a lot of gas left in the tank. But it'd be good for them in the long term if one of those younger guys is able to step up. And I think just from week 1 of OTAs, again, grain of salt disclaimer, but I thought Darius Rush looked pretty solid out there. I mean, he looked pretty fluid, looked smooth when he had opportunities with the first team defense. And, the unfortunate reality of this for Trice is that Rush is getting a head start right now in this period of spring. I mean, two pretty similar guys in terms of size, speed, college pedigree. Rush was a 5th rounder, I think. Trice a 7th. And, it's a little odd that Rush has already bounced around a little bit this early in his NFL career. But, I mean, there's still the traits and the projectable aspects of it that the Steelers must like. They had him in for a pre-draft visit. So we can infer that they've had interest in him as a prospect going back to, even before last year's draft. So, I mean, he's getting a chance right now to try to separate a bit. And, it stinks for Trice that he's not fully cleared for contact yet. He said he's sure he will be by training camp, and maybe he can make a late push. And, there's going to be, it's generally a level playing field until you get to those live periods at St. Vincent College. But at least for right now, Rush has every opportunity to kind of start making a good impression in a way that Trice just simply can't. So, so that's a point in the box for Rush if he can continue to build off of that. And, the other sort of side note that I'll mention to this is you might be sitting there in your living room or whatever in your car wondering, why aren't you mentioning Ryan Watts, 6th round pick this year from Texas, their last draft pick last month. He's been playing more safety than anything so far for the Steelers. So that was also something that we talked about, and a lot of the draft experts who chopped up his film going into it said, this guy might have to transition to a safety spot in the NFL. Just not sure if he has kind of that fluidity that you need as a corner. And so far, at least, it seems like the Steelers may be buying that idea too, or they just feel like they're a little less, deep at safety than they are at corner, even with Trice out for right now.
Right. And all of this is just looking at skill sets and seeing how guys fit. Again, a lot of this is experimentation, especially with lower round rookies, seeing where they could be. And they got Deshaun Elliott, they got Devontae Casey with Minka Fitzpatrick, but maybe they could use another guy there that's not Miles Killebrew, even though Miles Killebrew is their special teams ace. So I get that too, but I look back at the prototype they seem to be trying to build at cornerback with these late round picks or in these different additions. Darius Rush, a guy who's almost 6'2", but ran a 4.36. So great length, great speed. Can they mold that into a high end player or a starter someday? Cory Trice, 6'3", ran a 4.47. But really explosive testing. Had his combine last year. Just with the injury questions that resurfaced last year as well. But I think it's going to be interesting to see when Trice does get approved for full contact, what he looks like when the pads go on, because, I got to talk to him. And when I asked him, I was like, hey, Cory, you were like one of the big talks at training camp when you went down last year. what kind of work do you put in to try to get back to that or get to surpassing that? And he was like, hey man, that's all he's been focusing on every day in his recovery is, while trying to get his body right, trying to also stay up on everything he needs to know as an NFL player and watching and studying how he needs to keep improving himself. And I think at least in the early stages of things, the Steelers have a lot of young, hungry guys like this who are, ready and willing to prove themselves and not resigned to playing a specific spot, just trying to find where they can fit in.
Yeah. And, it's interesting too that Rush and Trice have been, with good reason, a big talking point for Steelers fans. But Donte Jackson is kind of a little bit of a forgotten man here. I mean, he's driven as well. I think he understands that people sort of wrote him off after a couple of disappointing seasons in Carolina the last 2 years, one with injury, and last year just maybe not as effective, at least to the point that they were probably going to cut him because of his big cap hit. I mean, I asked him the other day, hey, what's the plan for you? I mean, are the Steelers kind of going to move you around like they've done with their previous veteran corners, Patrick Peterson, Cam Sutton? He said, no. I mean, I've only ever played outside corner in the NFL, and so far it seems like that's where they want me, but willing to do whatever. So just keep that in the back of your mind that Jackson didn't bristle with the idea of maybe moving inside to the slot. There's no indication that they're going to do that. They might trust that, hey, he's our insurance plan at the other outside corner spot opposite Joey because he's been there, done that in the league, but he's not one of these avatar corners at 6 foot and above. He's a little smaller guy, and he's out to prove that he hasn't lost a step. And it was just he definitely brings a good energy to that group as the eldest statesman.
He's the old head. Yeah,
he is, but he's new here, and he was talking about how much he's always admired the Steelers defense from afar. That it's great to come into a place where the standard is set. I'm sure that's at least a little bit of a sort of a stray for Carolina, but what are you going to do? That franchise has been down bad the last few years with a lot of turnover in the front office and coaching staff and just team personnel. But yeah, he said he's excited to get here, play with guys like TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick. Said you've got to swim with the sharks, and he feels like he is a shark. So, which is good because sometimes people say you're swimming with sharks, but pilot fish, Chris, actually they swim with sharks because it protects them from other predators, and that's not really a bold or noble thing in terms of a sporting comparison.
That was a very interesting way to compare that. But
it was just in my book that I was reading with my son, so it was kind of fresh in my mind. I was like, you always hear that, I'm swimming with the sharks now. It's like, well, that could be a good thing if you are another shark,
right?
But if you're a pilot fish, just kind of drafting off of them for protection and eating some of the leftover stray food, like that doesn't really paint you in the light that you're going for there.
The North Shore Drive podcast, now also brought to you by Zoo Books.
But they're actually called Who Would Win Books, but yeah, they're good.
That's I could get into that kind of book.
Hammerhead versus Bull Shark is where I learned this interesting shark fact.
Who won though?
Do you want the spoiler, or do you want to go check it out at your local library?
Give me the spoiler.
Well, the hammerhead's bigger, but the bull shark is just way more aggressive. And I mean, yeah, he just bites his tail. He has him in the blender, man. It is not good for the hammerhead shark at the end of that book.
There you have it.
It's like Jaylen Warren picking up a blitz against like an oncoming edge rusher or something, just detonates him.
I think that's a great comparison because Jaylen Warren ain't big, but he will put you on your butt. I think he did that to Myles Garrett once or twice. Does
Jaylen Warren? He doesn't have a nickname or anything yet, does he? Maybe we should call him the Bull Shark.
Bull Shark. There we go. We just did it right here on the North Shore Drive podcast. We have now named Jaylen Warren the Bull Shark.
These things need to happen organically, but maybe I'll bring the book in next week, take it to his locker, like here. Jaylen, here's some reading material. Let me know what you think of comparing your game to a bull shark.
Okay, we got to get back here. We're going to talk about receivers next because we talked to George Pickens and Calvin Austin this week. I want to get their thoughts. We won't do any more zoology talk here.
You think? We'll see.
Who knows? But stick with us here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down below in the description.